Network Entertainment.
You're listening to Adobo Talks podcast, The Business of Creativity, a series of high-level, inspirational, and educational sessions on how creativity unleashes inventive solutions that will fuel the creative economy. In each episode, we'll be learning essential lessons through conversations with some of the brightest minds in the creative industries. I'm Angel Guerrero, founder, president, and editor-in-chief of Adobo Magazine. And today, I'm sharing this lovely whiskey with Ronnie Del Carmen, a veteran storyteller with more than 3 decades of experience in animation, and one of the greatest minds behind award-winning films like Disney and Pixar's Inside Out. Welcome to the set, Ronnie, and welcome to the Philippines.
Thank you, Angel. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'd like to have a toast with you, by the way.
Yes, it's a good thing we have some nice
This
things
wonderful
to toast
drink,
with.
yes. So welcome
to
again.
you.
Thank you very much. So Ronnie, if you don't know him, he's behind the award-winning and nominated Inside Out, and as well as he's been how to call it, a storyboard artist on so many films, right?
Yes.
Tell me what films there are. Ratatouille.
Oh gosh, I started doing, well, there's a difference because I storyboarded for TV animation first, and then which is storyboarding duties, and then I did story work in animated features. I started at DreamWorks on Prince of Egypt, and then from there on I became a story supervisor, and then after that I became a real pain in the neck for Pixar, where I'm all over the place and helped out in so many movies.
I know you started, though, in advertising, our part of the world,
Yeah.
before you went to the States and did storyboard and animation, all the like. Tell me, what did you do in the ad industry, and how did you catapult yourself into, the world of Walt Disney, Pixar, and all of that?
Yeah, well, I went to UST.
Okay, that's my alma mater, by the way.
Yes, right? And I graduated fine arts, but I majored in advertising. So it's not the real fine arts oil painting kind of school that I went to. I went to do that course specifically to do this unholy marriage of art and commerce. Be able to draw and create, but get paid and make ads for soap and toothpaste. That's what I did. And I did that here in Makati a long time ago. And I had a great time, actually. I had a lot of fun. We crafted a lot of ads, and I learned about the industry, and I made a lot of great friends who are still friends of mine to this day. And then it came time to actually migrate. It was 1989.
What was the trigger? Why'd you say, I want to migrate?
Well, it was one of those things where my dad had migrated a lot earlier, 11 years. I didn't see my father for 11 years.
That's a long time.
It is a long time not to see your dad. And my dad had refused to come home because he was working on his papers. And then when it came time to see him again, it was 11 years later, and I already had a family. And it's kind of a reunion that I always felt like, this is a big deal. When my dad left, I was like 17 turning 18. And the next time I see him, I was 29 years old. And Dad, I have a family, I have 2 kids. Isn't that like it's like a time warp, right? And you are an advertising person whose training is here in the Philippines, and you land in Los Angeles, and you're wondering, how am I going to be credible here?
Yeah, how do you manage that?
I made a portfolio.
Okay, guys, portfolio is important.
Yes, I made a portfolio. But there in the U.S., they call it your book.
Yeah.
You got to say, it's like, so whenever you go and make an application, and it goes like, just bring your book and leave it with us, and then we'll call you. And as soon as somebody says that, I feel like, I don't have a book. What are they talking about? What is that? Right? Until I got the clarification, your book is your portfolio. It's like, so you put that together, and I did, and I left it in various agencies, and the first thing that they asked me is that, can you speak Spanish? No, because my name is Ronaldo Del
Del
Carmen,
Carmen, yes.
and there's
It's
a
very
lot of
Spanish.
Hispanic ad agencies. They were pointing me, you could work for these ad agencies that specifically target, the Hispanic community. And so I was like, oh, sadly, I can't speak Spanish. I speak a dialect in my head. I can kind of understand Chabacano from Cavite City, which is where I was born,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can grok Spanish, but I can't speak actual Spanish that is spoken in Mexico, which apparently is also different from the Spanish that's spoken in Spain. Anyway, so I'm completely out of luck. So I feel like that door is not going to
Open
for
for
me.
you. Yeah.
And what I fell into is the animation industry. It is an industry that I swore I want to have nothing to do.
Yes, you said that you got into this career, but you didn't want it.
I didn't want it.
What's the story
Keep
behind
it,
that?
keep it away from me. I don't want to do animation. The other thing about animation is that the principle of animation is like 24 frames is what you need to have 1 second of experience.
Okay.
24 drawings for 1 second of experience. That's a lot of drawings for
That is.
1 second of experience. So I feel like I don't want that job. I'm an illustrator. No, I want one drawing to tell me whole stories. That's how I like the deal to be. And of course, the only jobs you can find in LA, this is Burbank, by the way. This is
Good place
beautiful
to be.
downtown Burbank where they make TV shows and films. There's a lot of film studios and a lot of animation studios. I didn't know that. And they said, you should be in animation. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Why? Because I didn't get great animation experience in school. In fact, it was only one subject, and the person teaching it wasn't really good at it. And it made me feel like this is a lot of toil.
Oh, you didn't feel qualified.
Well, not
Right.
only not feel qualified, I didn't like it.
You didn't like it, yeah,
want it.
okay.
Keep it away from me. I don't want to do this thing.
Okay.
Anyway, but those were the only jobs that
Were
were really
available.
available. And then a friend of mine says, I'm going to introduce you to someone. And then they did. My friend, who's Sylvain Dupre, who's French, cosmopolitan guy, draws he drives a BMW. And here I am, fresh off the boat. Kind of like, you should go and apply here. My friend, Stéphane Martinier, who's also a Frenchman, might be looking for an assistant. And I'm thinking, I don't know, Sylvain. I don't think this is going to work. And Stéphane sees me. It's just like looking at my book. This is very good. Okay. Can you start soon? And I was like, well, Stéphane, hold your horses. I got to tell you, I know nothing about animation. In fact, I don't even really want to be in animation. And then all he's saying is like, well, I teach you.
Ah.
Yes.
So
which is
you
very
learned
generous.
along the way.
On the job.
On
Yes,
the job.
Yes. And then Stefan hires me. He fights for my salary. The producer wonders, can this guy do the job? It's just like, no, he can do it. I show up for work on Monday, and then I look for Stefan. No Stefan. It's just like, where's Stefan? There's he's on vacation for 2 weeks. And like there's stacks of work on my table. It's just like, what am I supposed to do with this? Talk about diving into the deep end. I had to go and figure out how to do the job that was left to me by asking everybody, like, what is this? What am I supposed to do with this? I had to find out, desperation, to go and learn it. And then when Stefan shows up 2 weeks later, it's just like, Stefan, what's happening? I showed up 2 weeks ago and trying desperately to find out how to do this thing. It's like, oh, it's okay. It's all right. Nothing is ever wrong. I feel like that's why I love the French, because they kind of make sure that it's not a disaster. It's just things to deal with. That's all it was. But I learned something.
So how'd you pick it up? I mean, how did you learn
And
animation then?
From there, I worked at Warner Brothers on Batman the Animated Series. On Batman the Animated Series, they hired me based on a hunch by Bruce Timm that I could do animation storyboard. Whereas I was applying for a character design position.
Right.
He asked me, so what do you want to do? I said, character design? And then he was like, nope, you'll do storyboards. Okay, you start Monday. And then
Excellent.
this is a show that actually is already fully crewed up and actually isn't hiring. I have no experience. It shows, and
In
yet
your
he
book.
hired me. Isn't that luck? Or something else?
So what was in your portfolio you think that turned them on? Was
I
it
think that it's mostly my work that had been about not only drawing, but there's a lot of narrative
narrative?
there,
Yeah.
right?
Characters, perhaps.
And he felt like he was going to take a chance on this guy. From then on, I had to learn cinematic language, staging, all of the things that you would do in a film school about studying movies. Film noir was, of course, Batman animated series, and then also narrative filmmaking that is for this very iconic character, Bruce Wayne. And the stories of Batman animated series are not necessarily for kids. So we were handling 22 minutes of storytelling every month and shipping them. So it was a lot of work that you're buried under, and you have to crunch through them. And if you're making mistakes along the way, there'll be a lot of people you can ask, and kind of like, it's embarrassing. I would ask this one director, I feel like, I got called into his office, like, and he goes, like, you haven't been doing a lot of this. I got caught.
Called
I got
out on
caught.
that, yeah.
And he says, I want to recommend some books, and then also let me give you some pointers. And he started teaching me as much as he can in the span of about 20 minutes. It's like, okay, get out. I got to go and do some work.
So you're really lucky that you got people who teach you along the way.
This is the curious thing about what I feel is a mystical rule about being out there in the world. Not just anywhere. I mean, in the Philippines, I felt like it may have happened, but it's happened to me around the world. There is a system that's in place that you can rely on, that if you were earnest and needing the help to upgrade your knowledge, there will be people who will show up to help you. The expression is like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Now, we wish we had that here as well.
This actually, you can rely on this anywhere in the world. But the first part of the expression, when the student is ready, that's when the teacher appears. Because if the student is not ready, you can't learn even if the teacher's there.
Fair enough.
So when those moments happen to me, I pay attention. And all of that, I started to enjoy it, because what I make shows up on screen. I feel like, oh, wait a second. I made this moment, and there it is
on screen.
And I feel like, what else can I do? So I had to learn timing. I had to understand behavior and acting, and you take some lessons about things. I collected all sorts of photocopied lessons of drawing and animation and acting and behavior that's been photocopied like hundreds of times from Disney vaults. Everybody did it. We would spend late nights on the photocopier. This is ancient technology.
That's right. You don't have to do the
We had
photocopy
folders
anymore.
and folders and folders. I still own them,
Yeah?
because they were hard to do. Of lessons, things that were taught animators and storytellers at Disney and Cal Arts, that's been circulating in the industry forever. The photocopies are so grainy, they're almost disappearing, but they're like encyclopedias of knowledge. You can't learn this. Nobody publishes them.
So it pays for any creative to really do their work and do some research, get inspiration.
Yeah, I think inspiration is the right thing, because if you are not interested, you might as well go to the bar and drink.
Yeah. But
Like
you
what
were,
I'm about to
and
do.
thankfully.
No,
Let's
what
have
I'm
another
saying-
sip of this.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I found it fascinating that not only was I already feeling like I'm pretty hot stuff. I can draw almost anything I want. I can paint anything I want, and I'm pretty good at it. But at the same time, I feel like this is a dimension of movement and behavior and storytelling that I don't have, and that others have gone before me and codified it, and that you can learn it. I
Yeah.
started to animate
Yeah.
and learn how to animate and counting frames, using timing sheets just to be able to understand the behavior.
What software were you on then?
No software. It's all paper.
Oh, no
It's
kidding.
all paper.
That's what a great way to learn. You wore a lot of hats though at Pixar, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you were a storyboard supervisor, a director, a writer, an illustrator.
Yeah.
And now you even voice talent for elementals. I mean, how did that all come about? I mean, how can people follow that same path?
It's one of those things. I don't plan on any of those. In
Sure.
fact, but my career has been at certain points, all of the time that somebody wants to promote me to do anything, I say no. At some point, somebody at DreamWorks says, like, Ronnie, your work at Prince of Egypt is pretty good, and we want to invite you to be the story supervisor on the next one, The Road to El Dorado. And I'm looking at them, it's like, are you guys nuts? I just finished this one movie. I barely kind of graduated from this movie. You want me to supervise an entire team and be story supervisor? I felt like that was one of the most thankless jobs, because you get to actually supervise about like 15 people who are story people. They're always disgruntled. They always don't have enough time to actually do their work. And you have to be their team leader and coach, nursemaid, psychiatrist and psychologist, and then as well as do your own work. And I'm thinking, it's like, no, thank you. I've seen the work being done. I'm like, I don't think I'm any good for it. Because you know what I like doing? Doing my own work, doing it well in my office. I have to lead a team. I go home. This is like, I said no. I didn't want it. And then the next thing you know, the power above me says, we don't care. You're it. They promoted me, and I've never done the job.
Amazing.
Right? And the thing I found out in doing the job, I like it. I like leading a team.
What did you like about, I mean, people don't have a clear understanding of what a story supervisor is, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about, you know, how there's the writers' rooms that we are familiar with. And what's the difference between, you know, doing story supervision and the writing? I know that there's some similarities.
There's some similarities because a lot of people, even people in animation, kind of draw a line between themselves who draw and then the writers who use writing software.
Right.
Right? And the people who do the writing is part of the Writers Guild, and you are not. So, but the story people actually comes from Walt Disney having created this system a long time ago.
It was Walt Disney who created the system of
He
story
created
supervisor.
this like story supervisor. The story and story supervision came along as the need arises. Walt wanted storytelling to happen, but all he has are animators, and he wanted to make full-length animated features. What he did was that he had called all of his animators to do the work of doing narrative. Now, animators are about in charge of behavior. You know, the kind of ways that a hand moves or the head tilts and the kind of takes they do. That's behavior. That's performance, that's acting. Whereas narrative is storytelling.
Yes,
or
indeed.
having within 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or whole acts. And since he can't rely on anyone else to make an animated feature who don't know how to do it, he conscripted these animators to think in larger chunks of the movie, to tell narrative and character arcs. And they do it by drawing and then creating dialogue and behavior and funny moments and gags. And they used to be called story sketch artists because they sketched the story. But because they were also coming up with the story, it got shortened into being a story person.
So how does that work with the writers in the room?
Well, now that we will advance past Walt's era, wherein what happens is that writing has to be done. You have the story department that actually does the storytelling via drawing and also telling each other jokes and gags and visual things. And then people will hire writers to be able to govern the entire movie beginning to end and kind of be in charge of the script. And most of the time, the writers are not familiar with the animation process. They were wondering, it's like, what's the story department? And then they find out there's a bunch of people drawing, and they're making each other laugh and telling each other gags.
That's the magic of animation.
Yes,
now.
because it's all performance, right?
Yeah.
It's all behavior. And then they feel like, oh, it feels like a writer's room, except that people are drawing. Right, and they have their own jargon and their own way.
So how did you do? I mean, you got into that role, you got promoted.
Yeah, I get promoted to do that, and then in that situation, I am in charge of a bunch of story artists, which I mean, like, you know, you got to go and be the person who, in lieu of the directors, who are very busy, I get to be in charge of the story, all 3 acts, and govern my own team of 15 people. Be able to tell them what we should focus on, how to develop it, and what to, to feature. And then we put it in the story reel, which we draw, all of it.
Now, I like the way I noticed that, I watched something that you said when you worked on Inside Out. I think it's one of the most profound, significant, emotional, empathetical piece of animation that I've ever come across, and it still continues to this day. And you were the story supervisor in that. And I want to know, what of yourself did you bring to the table to make it come out the way it did? I mean, it's full of emotion, array of emotions. You're telling a story, but it also so reflective of humanity and human behavior.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed about my participation in animated features is that I didn't know what a story person is to begin with. I battled and struggled with it to the point that I really suck at it. And I started at DreamWorks Animation, and they were making Prince of Egypt then. And I was new to this process. All I knew was about TV animation. Somebody writes the script, I draw what's on the script. And I don't stray from it because the writers in TV don't allow you to change one word of their script. In fact, what they encourage you to do is actually use a cutter to cut the lines of their script
and put it in.
Paste it underneath each frame. Don't change a word. Whereas in story people, story work and features, you're allowed to play with it. It's not written on stone. So, and here I am, used to one way, and I have to be indoctrinated in a different way. I suck at this job for about a year. And the next thing I know is I'm talking to one of the directors, and I say, maybe we should call it. It's not working. I should leave. One of the directors, Brenda Chapman, who's become a good friend, and she's a great mentor, she says, like, no, don't worry about it. Just pay attention to the character's eyes. Huh? Eyes, just, I want to know what they're going through. Okay. All right. But the script and what I'm doing is like, you'll figure it out. Right. For my first sequence that I storyboarded, I pitch it, and we pitch, by the way. Not only do you draw it, but you stand in a room with a stick, and you point to the drawing, and you say the lines of dialogue underneath it, which I find ridiculous. I said, like, don't you guys have a writer? I see him, he's right there. He typed out that script. You read it. Because I know you read it because you gave the script to me to draw. And I drew it. And then I put the lines underneath the frames. And then I point the stick at the drawings. And then I pitch it, the story. And then after I pitch the story, everyone goes like, no, that's not working. This sucks. This is bad. This is good. And I'm thinking, okay. And then they're looking at me as if like I did it. I was like,
no, you
but I didn't write this thing. It's like, and then they tear it apart. And I'm there standing there very mute, holding the stick, as if like, I'm responsible for this?
Yeah.
I don't understand this. I hated that job. Until this point, a year later, that same sequence, landed on my desk. And this time, it's not even a script. It's like one paragraph. It's an outline. This is what's going to happen. It's like, that hasn't changed in a year. It's the same thing, except now there's not even words that characters speak. And I'm due to pitch next week. I'm going to be walking into a punch. I hated this job. I was like, okay, well, I've been trying to quit. This is it. You know what I did? I was like, you know what? My brothers and I used to actually hang out together. And this is a movie about brothers. I have a brother. I have 2 brothers. So all I did was like, oh, well, you know what? When we were young, my mom would ask us to take naps in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. You probably have had this if some of you are older. Your parents would force you to take a nap.
Yeah.
And if you don't take a nap, you're going to get it. Right? So, but to me, it feels like I'm a boy and I want to go and play. So I would wake my brother. Come on, let's go. And he would sneak out of the house, climb the guava tree behind the house, and we would play like little monkeys. Oh, so fun. You're swaying on the branches and you're having a good time, and laughing. And then my mom would wonder, it's like, where are the boys? And then she would open the door to the house and scream to the neighborhood because now the entire neighborhood hears, Ronaldo! Enrique! You're in trouble when your mom calls you by your birth certificate name.
Yep.
And then what we do is we climb down the tree and go in the back and come in just like, what's the matter? What are you looking at? It's like, where were you? We were right here. We were inside the house. We trick her and we feel like, wow, that was awesome. We should keep doing that.
So you brought those stories of your life as a child.
I put it in the story of Moses and Ramesses.
Okay.
When Ramesses is there inside, a failing king, and then Moses comes here and then starts talking to statues and telling the statues that, I remember when we used to switch the heads of these gods over here and Dad got angry. And then the statue answers back, yeah, that was a lot of fun, except I'm the one who got in trouble. And then they start relating as friends. And then I tell this story because I just do 3 drawings and I presented it to the story supervisors, and the story supervisor says, we're going to call the directors. And the next thing you know, the director's in the room. And then I have to go like, we should call the producers. The producers now. My room is full of people. And I pitch it 3 times. And they're all very happy. And then I started talking. And so I'm like, you know what? This is awesome. They're relating as brothers. And it's fun and it's funny. And so it's like, oh, you know what? We should put this in the first act.
Yeah.
We should show this movie. It's like, and then they all leave. And then I'm wondering, what happened? And Brenda's really happy. It's just like, good job.
See, what's important, I think the learning here is you pull from your own personal life and experiences that you're able to bring out into these stories that can be told in international films.
But the thing about it is, like, I'm late to the party. That was the job. I was trying to say it's this other job. But they were always telling me, it's like, you're supposed to do this.
You're supposed to.
It's actually working without a net. You could fail. It could be embarrassing, but do it. There is no roadmap, right? You're going to risk it.
But that's great because a lot of times now, people don't want to fail. They look at ROI. They look at,
this is a cultural divide. It happens in the States.
Yeah.
Because we go to school.
Yes.
Wherein you're tested, right? There's a right answer you put on the blanks, right? And if you get the right answer, you get a check and you get a medal, you get a trophy. You become valedictorian for doing that. But if you go off book, you go off the page and extemporize, distill, synthesize, they don't recognize it.
Yeah.
Now, what are they testing? Your ability to regurgitate answers is how we were taught in school. And that's what I was cleaving to. I was like, I got to go and be able to actually come up with the answers that you were expecting. Movie making is not about coming up with the expected. Otherwise, we shouldn't watch these movies because we know what to expect. Mm-hmm. We want surprise. We want thrills. We want emotions that we didn't think we were going to feel.
So how did you draw it out?
Because,
I'm just trying to say, to our listeners, who want to get into this storytelling and, they have their own story. I mean, how do you draw it out of you?
Yeah, well, the thing about this is safety.
Safety.
No, because not only are you correct that people don't want to fail, safety, but also when you get to tell a story that nobody's heard before, you want surefire zingers and things to kind of be familiar with. Mm-hmm. You put in things that are familiar, and then people are not happy. Right? Because I feel like I've seen this before. It's been done better elsewhere. Why? Because I borrowed it from other things.
So your life in the Philippines and your relationship with your family really brought to the table the kind of stories that you want to...
But I didn't know that you should do that.
You didn't know, right?
Because
of course.
It's unwritten that you should risk those stories, right? Your own self. I put my father's life in Inside Out.
Yeah, tell us about that. You did mention that. You put your father's life into the Inside Out,
yes,
right?
No, and more of it actually in Up.
Up.
Because my dad had white hair.
Okay.
Wears glasses. He's got jowls. He's got a square face.
Okay, yeah. I know the character.
Yes. Anyway, so my dad's face is like that. So what I know about it is that in the parts of the movie wherein he has a life, wherein he falls in love with the love of his life from his childhood, And I get to insert the kind of life that I feel that my father had, as well as my own life with my own wife, right? And it feels like this is a challenging life that Carl has. Oh, we grew up with a lot of tragedy and upheavals in my life. So we get to kind of play around with it. There's a moment where Carl actually is trying on ties with his wife, and it changes from thin tie to bow ties to being wide.
Yeah, I remember that.
In the 70s. My dad wore those ties.
I see. Okay.
Because everybody wore those ties back then. They were loud. You know, they were kind of shiny. And then the lapels, you know, the collars,
the
actually,
ones,
they're aerodynamic. If you fell off a building, you would probably float.
So I think it pays to really be observant in your life of the little details.
It's the thing that's sneaky about this is that nobody was telling me not to do it. I put in all the various ties that I saw my dad wear, and I gave it to Carl.
So telling stories with such deep personal roots does leave us emotionally vulnerable sometimes, you know, and the prospect of failure is a little scarier.
It is.
So what advice do you give about failure? Because, you know, in the way we work, you pitch something and not everything goes through.
Oh, no.
And in the Philippines and in Asia generally, when you pitch and you don't make it, really you're downhearted and you're down.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to continue.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been encouraged. You've, I'm sure, had your own failures.
Yeah.
But you've reached this far. We want to learn from you.
Well, failure is failure. I don't want to sugarcoat it like it's fun. It's not. It stinks. It hurts. It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
And then not only that, you don't feel good. It's a normal human being encountering these things, challenges. You face plant. You did not achieve the goal. You kind of feel like, oh my God, this is not a shining moment I want to highlight. There's a difference in culture wherein I started to learn that my friends also weren't broken by it.
When you say friends from
people I work with, right?
Okay.
Who are it wasn't disabling, and they didn't carry it past that moment wherein it stung, and they redoubled the effort.
So redouble the effort, guys. When somebody puts you down, don't give up.
Oh, no. I mean,
Work.
It's
Redouble the efforts.
most people who I work with who had to give you just the plain and varnished truth that it's not working. It's not personal. It's about the work. It's not succeeding right now. Not you. Because you are going to come back. You're going to come back with another solution. That may also not work. Maybe 10 more times it won't work. Maybe 20 more times.
So what's the best culture you'd think we could work with when it comes to creative combustion or...
Well, the thing that I understand about this is that I actually like the journey wherein I don't know the answer. I want to understand and deserve the solution. I am going to fail. And I am going to suck at this. We didn't know anything about how the human brain works or how emotion works. For years, we consulted with neurologists, scientists of the brain, behavior experts, and all of those people told us how things actually work. But we don't know. We are just storytellers. We started to kind of ingest this, but we still have to be storytellers.
That's for Inside Out, right?
For Inside Out. Now, the thing about this is for about 3 years, we were clueless what to do. But we were the only people in charge of what should be in the movie. It's a big responsibility. Is it going to work or not? And if we can't crack it, nobody can.
True.
At some point, all of the dues paying, the failures, at some point on the planet, there were only a choice few people who deserved to tell the story. And we were it.
Congratulations.
But thank you very much. But it was not going to become a daily success story. We failed more times than we care to admit. And in the culture we're in, all of the people around us are going to say, yeah, that didn't work, but you're going to get it.
So in this day when, things are moving so fast, content, ROI, storytelling, writer's room, everything's a little faster.
Yes.
You had a lot of time, I think. Well, in perspective to think about Inside Out and how it came about. With this fast pace, how can we work better as storytellers and creatives in this
That's cool.
room?
I know it's very interesting. It depends on actually what you want out of this game or this journey. There's a journey we're in, kind of like we want to finish a movie. That's one game. Then there's a game we're in. We want a good movie, and then there's a third one we're in. We want a great movie.
So you have to invest in time.
Depending on which it is in your studio, in your culture, the people who say yes, the people who want this movie. The question is, for you, who are gatekeepers, do you want a finished movie? Do you want a good movie? Or do you want a great movie? And you happen to have hired the best people to be able to make it. Now, you can hire the best people, but you keep them from making a great movie because you just want a finished movie.
It's very advertising.
Right?
Speed is of the essence.
If you just want a finished movie,
yeah,
you're paying them too much. If you want a good movie, then you're not utilizing them to the best of their ability. But these people are going to work days and nights and everything that it'll take to give you a great movie. Do you want to keep them from making a great movie for you? Now, this is because there's a philosophy in the studio that is actually instilled from Steve Jobs himself and Ed Catmull and all the leaderships, the creative leadership there. Feels like the movie is good, but it isn't great. They're the ones who are saying, we want a great movie. It's already good. Now we want you to take more time and effort to be able to make this a great movie. We'll battle who we need to battle to make sure that you get to the finish line. The finish line actually doesn't move.
right.
It's still the same release date. That means that you have to redouble your effort to actually make this a great movie. We think it'll be great. Now, whose leader do you want to listen to? The one who wants to just finish the movie, make a good movie, or the one who says, I want you to go for it? And they're not going to be able to give you more time or more resources. They just want to believe in you that you can make a great movie. That's a lot of fuel.
Now you're a Filipino. You I don't know if you know a lot about our industry and how it works right
No, I
now.
don't.
You don't.
No, I don't.
So of course, you're trying to improve what we do. We're trying to get Filipino creativity noticed in the world. There's a lot of talent in the Philippines.
Absolutely.
And we know that. And we want to tell the young creatives not to give up. I mean, I know a lot of parents say they still want them to go through traditional roles that make money, doctors, lawyers, you name
Yes.
it. And it kills creative ambitions. Filipinos, we know, right, as Filipinos, that we're very creative. We can draw really well. We have a lot of designers amongst our midst. How do you think we can catapult ourselves up there and be less afraid of this path of success and international recognition and just doing the stuff out there, knowing our limitations within the country?
I don't know how to fix some of those things. I know that culture of asking for excellence, but not excellence at the expense. It's like, yeah, we want you to be excellent, but I want you to meet not only the deadline, this budget, and also you want to battle a whole mountain of people who says, like, that's good enough, right? The global campfire of narratives that are out there, we are always surprised year in, year out, that always like a handful of movies actually dares to say something that nobody's ever dared before. And then we give them awards and we applaud them because it's daring, because it's new, because it also speaks a certain truth that we can recognize. It seems fearless, but it is scary for them to do it, right? But we know that it was scary because it can't have been easy to make what these movies achieve. They're daring, right?
Because so let's be daring.
But
let's move it out there.
You cannot do it just because you have a small band of people who want to buck the trend or go against the grain. The culture being supported from the very highest position of your studio or company to be able to say, we're going to reach for what has never been done before, what hasn't been said before. And we stand to fail, as well as if we don't reach for it, then we say no to success.
So what's great this year is that the Philippines now has a law that promotes Philippine creative industries and the development of it. And I wish you'd become a part of it.
That's awesome to hear.
You know, it's really tremendous. It's a time for the Philippines to shine, and there's a lot of attention to the creative industries, be
Yes.
it animation, be it
Yes.
design, be it film. We're sort of elevating ourselves. We're winning
awesome.
in film festivals around the world right now. But it's always, I always feel we're at the cusp. And I always want to, really break that
I would
cusp
love that.
state
That would
of
be
cusp.
fantastic.
So thank you again, Ronnie, for being here with us. And I
I
hope
appreciate it.
You'd come back and then, continue to inspire our creatives here in the Philippines. And whatever you've achieved is something we can only dream of. And what's great is, I think the learning here is you learn from your own experiences, be brave, look for opportunities. I think you found opportunities. And what I learned as well is you kept saying no to a lot of the stages in your career. And people just said, do it, and you did it. And I think, guys, if anything comes your way and you think it's something you can take on, there's nothing wrong with doing it. And you might succeed or you might fail.
Yeah, like they say, you know what? If you don't take the shot, you don't have a shot at winning it. You might as well actually take the shot. Failure may be something that's already waiting for you, but what if you win it?
Now, okay, so Ronnie, you have been working for 30 years in all that you do, a Filipino having so much success in Hollywood, Oscar nominated, and you as an artist and a creative, what do you still want to do?
That's a good question. I'm actually home for those exact reasons. I've been coming home to the Philippines off and on, and what I've been encountering, just like anybody in life, you start to encounter yourself when you come home. The things you said when you were younger now come back to haunt you. The things that you believed in before are now here to kind of whisper in your ear. You remember what you said before a long time ago, right? That all you wanted was to be able to get out and be able to prove certain things to yourself. I think you've done it. Now what? You're still alive.
But of course.
Right? There was a trip that I had done on research in Southeast Asia. I visited every country in Southeast Asia twice over, 3 times over in some other countries, except for the Kingdom of Brunei, East Timor, and for some reason the blank spot is Laos. But all over that region of Southeast Asia, I started to research stories that could be pulled so that you can kind of say, this is emblematic of a Southeast Asian story. And I did it because I asked to be able to do the research, and then finally go do it. I did it by myself. It was grueling, but I did it. And what I came up with, I came up empty-handed. I couldn't pick one because they were all very uniquely Southeast Asian, and I couldn't pick one that felt like it was emblematic of one Southeast Asian story. It's impossible as far as I was concerned. I came home to Pixar and I felt like I failed in this mission. But what I did find, I found myself. Every country I go to, I encountered fragments of my language in all the countries I visited. The words that we have, which is Austronesian based, all throughout the region, our language is related to trade and commerce and industry before our colonists showed up. I started to find myself in these countries. Not only that, but I felt at home when I go to each of these countries. I feel like, man, this feels so familiar. Even though you're sweating and it's really hot, right? I feel like I am so happy to be here. And in that Southeast Asian trip, it includes the Philippines too. And I feel like I am so full of joy to be on the ground, in jungles, even if there's mosquitoes, on rivers, falling into rivers, climbing temples, climbing mountains, doing hikes. I couldn't wait every day. And I journaled and I wrote and I talked to myself, and I feel like I'm the story.
So that's next.
I think that I need to actually uncover the reason I'm home, which is a mystery. I think I'm supposed to do something. And while I'm here, I'm trying to find out, how can I get this out? And I know that Hollywood may not be involved, but at some point, I feel like in order to honor the journey for myself, having grown up here, come from here, gone outside and come back, there's a reason I'm back. So I'm going to find out.
I hope the opportunity comes to you.
I hope so,
to be able to tell that story from the Southeast Asian perspective, which would be very fresh
specifically
to the world.
The Philippines.
Specifically
the Philippines.
I wish you well in that. And
Thank
let
you.
me support you where
Awesome.
we can
Thank you.
in Adobo Magazine. Thank you very much. So on behalf of Adobo Magazine, the business of creativity, thank you for tuning in. We're in Spotify, SoundCloud, and the adobomagazine.com channels. Thank you very, very much. And here's to creativity.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.